Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
You know, at the end of the day, the membership does control the party. It may take some time, to get to the next convention or the next leadership race. But O'Toole is behaving in a way that is right now, if he performs poorly in the next election, which I think by all indications he will, he'll be sent to the woodshed faster than you can blink an eye.
For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini, joined here with Derek Sloan, MP for Hastings, Lennox and Addington. And now, Derek, until recently, you were a member of the Conservative Party in Ottawa. So why hasn't the party opposed the civil liberties infringements that we see happening and the pandemic lockdown? I mean, are MPs in favor of these measures, or are they just too scared to criticize it?
Well, as we were mentioning earlier, and as I've mentioned before, it doesn't really matter what individual MPs think. In fact, many of them are skeptical of many of the issues that I brought forward, the lockdowns, the civil liberties infractions, other things. But if it doesn't come from the top, they won't talk about it, because we live in a country with this sort of strict party discipline approach. And if you talk too much, things happen to you like what happened to me. And so that sends a message to MPs to watch themselves. Now, I would still call on my fellow MPs to speak up, because the truth is more important than a pension or a paycheck or, whatever, scheme that the leadership has. But unfortunately, it is a reality that the leadership holds sway over, 99% of, if they're in a party right now, chances are they're not willing to speak up, because, look what happens when you speak up.
Exactly. Now, as a result, you've joined recently the anti-lockdown caucus.
That's correct.
So what action do you see or foresee that caucus taking in terms of actually opposing the lockdown?
Well, I think my hope anyways is that we will get a large buy-in from elected officials across the country. Maybe more municipal officials than otherwise, because they're not subject to this sort of party discipline. But already, we started with 5 on day 1, and now we're, day 9 or 10. I'm not sure what day we are, but as of yesterday, we were 28 people. We're probably even more people today. And that's elected officials or party leaders here in Canada. So listen, if we get hundreds of municipal officials across the country, we can start taking, concrete actions at the municipal level to start opening things up and pushing back.
Mm-hmm. Now, and part of that, you've met with Maxime Bernier.
Yes.
Would you be adverse to working with him, or, maybe even joining the PPC party?
Well, we're certainly working together on the End the Lockdowns caucus. I have not had a conversation with Maxime about joining the PPC. He had mentioned it to me once back when I was undergoing some of this Dr. Tam stuff. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what, well, it was more just, he indicated to me the doors were always open type of thing, but we haven't had any conversation like that recently. Right now, my focus is on, exposing, things that are going on within the Conservative Party and in other areas. I'll be doing that in my own fight to retain sort of my seat here. And also as I'm dealing with the upcoming Conservative convention. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling there will be all kinds of things that end up coming out about, policies that they're trying to quash and candidates that they're trying to eliminate. I don't have anything to say in that now, but stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the Conservative Policy Conference, because you've been a big advocate for that sort of grassroots conservatism. But with all due respect, at this point, what is the point? O'Toole will fire you, remove you from caucus. He'll fire Pierre Poilievre, one of his top performers. Mm-hmm. So do you think that O'Toole is really interested in hearing from those grassroots conservatives?
Well, he's not. But at the end of the day, the constitution of the Conservative Party, they're bound to follow that, even by law. So if the constitution is changed and O'Toole doesn't like it, he's literally legally liable to follow that. So, at the end of the day, the membership does control the party. It may take some time, to get to the next convention or the next leadership race. But O'Toole is behaving in a way that is right now, if he performs poorly in the next election, which I think by all indications he will, he'll be sent to the woodshed faster than you can blink an eye. Mm-hmm. So these are, the party membership controls the party at the end of the day. And there may be periods of time where, the leader has his sway, but there's always accountability mechanisms, national council, conventions, passing policies, making changes. And this is going to be exciting the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Do you foresee a federal election in the future? And I mean, maybe you can just elaborate a little bit. You said you don't think maybe that the Conservatives will do so well under the leadership of O'Toole. Can you expand on that? Sure.
So I don't have any more inside information than you do or anyone else. Based on what I'm hearing on the Hill, I don't think we're going to see like a March or a April election. We might see a late May or June election. We might see a fall election, but all the parties are kind of jockeying with the expectation that an election could happen. If an election happens anytime within the next several months, I think the Conservatives will do significantly worse this time than they did under Andrew Scheer. And basically that's because O'Toole is showing that he basically despises the base. I mean, he's showing that he's willing to say whatever he needs to say to win the leadership or to win the Toronto urban soccer moms, this mythical creation that I don't even believe exists in the way that he thinks it does, that he needs to do all these things. But no, I think the Conservatives will certainly perform worse unless they drastically change course quickly. But they're showing that they're doubling down and they're going to keep on making the same mistakes that they've been making and render themselves. I mean, there was that Maclean's article there a few days ago, and I forget the title, but the gist of it was Erin O'Toole's campaign to make the Conservative Party innocuously uninteresting or something like that. And they're doing it. I mean, that's their goal, and they will do that, and they'll find that they will be irrelevant when they do that.
Mm-hmm. Which is unfortunate. Now, here locally, I was just reading yesterday that the health unit has imposed this restriction that anyone who's visiting from out of town are to be hit with a $5,000 fine if they're found to be out of their zone, because as you know, that this is a region that's now entered green. In terms of that civil liberty infringement, can you speak to that at all? Or do you have a comment for the health units that are imposing these fines on people who choose to travel?
So this is the first time hearing of it. I didn't know that. It seems extreme. I don't know if $5,000 would. So this is just a health code violation, basically, that they've.
Right. Yeah. If you book an appointment, a hotel, any sort of personal care outside of your region.
Okay, and this isn't the province that's doing it. It's our local.
It is the local health units. Okay. Yes.
I mean, off the top of my head, it sounds, well, certainly I disagree with it. It sounds potentially, typically health code violations would not be a $5,000 fine. That does not seem commensurate to, the potential, risks, so to speak. So yeah, I think that's ridiculous. I as we were discussing earlier, I recommend if anyone ever gets one of these tickets to fight it, because it seems like the province or, whoever's putting forward a particular regulation is afraid of this type of thing getting challenged in court. So I would encourage anybody to challenge something like this if they were to get a ticket for $5,000
in court. And speaking of challenge, you seem to be the only provincial MP that is speaking out against the quarantine facilities imposed by the federal government.
Yes.
So where are you at with that? We see that there's legal proceedings starting to trickle down from various, the Justice Centre and the Canadian Civil Liberties groups. Are you going to continue to push back, and where do you see that going?
Well, you're right. So I'm the only one that I know of that's brought this up in the House of Commons. It's frightening. We're hearing people being, put into unmarked vehicles, not told where they're going, officers not identifying themselves. This is crazy. And, we'll see. Already the government has sort of backed off on this. They've delayed, implementing this. So we'll see what they do. I really do. Again, this would have been a key moment for the Conservatives to shine. Right. This would have been a key moment for the opposition to be in opposition. But they're being completely mute on this. Mm-hmm. So, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's been, some pushback obviously by people and maybe, I mean, the fact that the government's pushing this off indicates that they're, rethinking this or something, but you're right. This is something, look, I don't know why someone can't just quarantine at their home. Like, I don't understand why, the Justice Center makes great arguments because the idea is, when you're infringing on someone's liberties like this, it has to be justified.
Right.
And in this case, it's not justified. There's no, justification to say that, there's no clear evidence to say that society is way safer if they're shuttled off in unmarked vehicles to some random hotel than going home to their own house. There is no justification for doing all of this under pain of arrest. So I think that, I think the Justice Center has a good case, and unfortunately, I hope they're able to get their case heard quickly. Unfortunately, a lot of these times it takes months, if not years, to fully resolve these things. So, and we're seeing so many of these, infringements happen so quickly. So I really hope that a court is willing to, act quickly on some of these things, and so we can see some positive results.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm no stranger to the wheels of justice being slow turning.
Yes.
So back also about a month ago, you were pretty heavily in the news for your petition to the government in order to try to gain some accountability and answer some of Canadians' valid concerns with the vaccine rollout program.
Yeah.
The petition, Canada is the only G7 nation without a vaccine injury compensation program. Do you have an update on the petition, or did you want to clear the air at all about how the media really spun that narrative?
Sure. Well, so actually, oddly enough, it's funny because, so I brought out that petition, which just closed a few days ago. I don't know what the final total of signatures is, but it's tens and tens of thousands. So I brought that petition forward. And again, parliamentarians sponsor petitions all the time without editing them clause by clause. They're a way for a citizen to bring forward a concern and get a direct answer. So, I don't really view it as my duty to hyperanalyze a petition or to tell someone what should be said. And I typically sponsor almost every petition that's presented to me, although I've kind of been flooded lately and we've been just so busy with everything, I may not be able to continue that. But so in any event, we put it forward, and there were frankly legitimate concerns that were raised, and one that you mentioned is there is not a vaccine injury compensation program in Canada. Although oddly enough, within a few days of my petition coming out, quietly they introduced one. So there was an article in the Globe and Mail by Jane Philpott and also a local doctor of health here, Dr. Kieran Moore, who highlighted the fact, listen, some people will be injured by this vaccine, albeit, and they quoted different percentages and so on. But they said, listen, we need to have something. And within a few days, I don't know if they didn't want to be upstaged by, their ex-minister of health, but they had one. So they do have it. And so it was interesting to me because I was getting, burned over the coals only a few days before. And then the government turns around and does something. And then, of course, nobody seems to talk about it. So, who knows why they did it, but it's interesting. Like what I find is when you cast, when you shed light on certain issues, there's a big firestorm, but then, things start to change. And I don't know if it's because of me or because of ripples that I've caused or somebody else, and we saw that with the government backing off on this, with this quarantining stuff as well. So, that's what I find. I just ignore that flack that I get because, it's sort of like the flack happens instantaneously, but the positive results will last for months and months. So I did sponsor that petition, and, listen, it made good points. Now, I'm not going to go into every specific point. I didn't write the petition. It was crafted by another person and they stand by it. But, the basic idea of, listen, there will be no liability for these companies as far as we can tell for any injuries. And listen, that may be a public health choice that the government has made for their own reasons. But listen, if that's the case, then you need to have a backup plan to deal with people who suffer,
the the injured.
Negative responses to the vaccine.
Do you know by chance if the compensation program would be taxpayer funded, or would it come directly from the companies held liable?
I'm sure it's taxpayer funded. I haven't looked into it closely, but my guess is that it would be taxpayer funded.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Derek. I think that covers the questions that we had for you today. And hopefully we can keep that dialogue open so that we can stay informed. And as this pandemonium unfolds here in Canada.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Our civil liberties movement at fightthefines.com is our largest campaign to date. If you want to support the work that we're doing to push back against government restrictions and civil liberties rights infringements that are happening across Canada with no real end in sight, then please consider donating what you can to fightthefines.com. Again, that website is fightthefines.com. We appreciate your support.